day in South Korea.
But we're gonna go out anyways and explore what we can find. Alright, we're going to the Korean War Memorial Museum, and this is our first attempt at taking the Korean subway. So far, it's a little different than the Tokyo station. We do go to the kiosk and we pay for a ticket, and we end up getting these little cards instead of like a little paper ticket. And then we put it up to the scanner, and then it will read the card, and that will be how we get in. But it's kind of different, like it's a little more complicated, I think, in trying to figure out how we know where we're going. So, but we'll stay here and wait for the train, and then hopefully we'll get to our stop at Samgak-ki, I think is how you pronounce it, and hopefully that will be where we need to be. But so far we're crossing our fingers to hope we get there. So we did our first Korean subway experience just now, getting over to the Korean War Memorial and Museum that we're going to. And something that's kind of strange is we got our single pass ticket, and they took a 500 won deposit for each of us. And then once we got to the end, we had to put our card that it gave us in as was our ticket, put it in there, and that gave us our deposit back. I don't know what the deposit's for, but it's interesting because I've never come across anything like that anywhere I travel to. But now we're going to head up the escalator. I think we found the right exit, and then we're going to head to the Korean War Memorial Monument. Hopefully it will teach us a little bit of history about the Korean War before our visit tomorrow. So we made it to the Korean War Memorial and the museum. We were just walking up to the museum, and we came across, this is the hall where they have all of the names of the soldiers who died during the Korean War. And we just came across, this is the America hallway, as they were broken down by state. And so we of course looked for Oklahoma and Texas and some of the other, we're just looking through, and we noticed that like Michigan has a huge panel, but Texas is incredible. You have this big panel, and this whole section is Texas, and then this whole wall is Texas, and up here is Texas, and then you have other states underneath. But man, it's really something else to see just how involved the U.S. was involved in this, and then Texas especially, with their huge number of forces. So,
War Memorial of Korea, and it's really cool. It was free, but it's like a really big, nice museum, and we thought it was just going to be about the Korean War, but it's like every war that has ever happened in Korea, and so it's huge. It's a lot, but it's really cool. I'd recommend this for sure.
That part of the museum, we just went through a 4D little show, and like it was supposed to be about the retreat back from the north of Korea back down south, and then with the refugees that were trying to escape the Chinese military that was coming through. And so like the room was freezing because it was during the winter time, and they had snow blowing inside, and they had storytelling. Kind of reminded me, there's one like that in New Orleans at the World War II Museum, but this is an amazing museum so far because of things like that.
So we are both really big history nerds and love museums, and so this one was really, really cool, and it was free, so that was amazing. And we spent quite a few hours just walking around here. We learned all about how North and South Korea split, and just learned all of that history, so that was really interesting, especially because this is a time where you hear about North Korea a lot in the news, and especially being Americans, and that how they have tied together. That's been really interesting to learn more about that history. So this was a really cool day. We definitely recommend this. bright and early on this cold morning, and we're headed to North Korea. Just kidding, Mom, kind of. We're headed to the DMZ, which is the demilitarized zone. It's the border between North and South Korea that people can go tour. You can see into North Korea.
That's right. So yesterday, after going to one of the most incredible museums that we've ever been to and learning so much history between North and South Korea, and when it was just Korea, today we're going to go do like the only thing that you can do here, which is see something that was history and in the museum, and then go and learn about it in person still today. We're gonna go out there with a tour group from Corridor Tours and do a half-day tour out there. Let's go. So our first stop on the tour is Freedom Park, and this park is supposed to be dedicated to the families that were split during the Korean War. And so they have different monuments and memorials to those families, and then also to some of the families that were able to be reunified in the years prior to the war. But we walked across a wooden bridge that you saw, and that is the Freedom Bridge, where over 12,000 POWs that were held by the North Koreans were released in 1953, and they walked across that bridge to come home to freedom. And then from there was a huge locomotive that had been destroyed, and that was destroyed during some missions. We're going back and forth between North and South Korea, and after that, it had been bombed. Then it was left in the DMZ, and so that was able to be moved in 2007 to this location, and now it's a historical marker just to represent the atrocities, kind of the war, and a reminder of what happened in the Korean War. So first stop is done, and then we're going to be heading out and going to the next one soon.
So after the agreement, after the Korean War, between North and South Korea, 4 tunnels were found from North Korea that they built, and when they were found, they tried to say that they were just mines, but they were really tunnels because they had dynamite pointing towards South Korea. So we just got to go in one of the tunnels, which was kind of crazy. We weren't allowed to take cameras in, so we didn't get to film it, but it was kind of creepy, but cool. It was really small. You had to wear helmets so you don't bonk your head. I'm glad Donnie did. He bonked his head quite a few times. But it was really cool. And they said that they're suspected to be about 10 tunnels. So that's kind of creepy that there's more tunnels that they haven't even found yet. So.
So here we are on our third stop on the tour, which is the Dorna Observatory. So we're overlooking North Korea right now. We can see the third largest city, a propaganda village, which is a village built that is purely just shells of buildings, and it's just to make it look like North Korea has a profitable, I guess, prosperous city right next to the border. And then there's also a small working village over on the side under the mountains, but we can actually see people walking around and riding their bicycles in North Korea, and actually see like movement going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so what we heard is as of April, they stopped having the propaganda back and forth. I guess North Korea would send propaganda this direction from their towers, and then South Korea would send like encouraging things in K-pop.
On loudspeakers. They blast them over.
So they said it used to be super loud up here, but I guess April they stopped doing that. So it's really nice and quiet.
Yeah. And so I guess they also just rebuilt the observatory. So now they have binoculars that you don't have to pay anything for. You can just walk up and just look through. They're really great. So you can see extremely far. Like even in the third largest city, we can see like what looks like propaganda up on top of the mountain. I mean, it may just be advertising, but that's just what it looks like to us. So anyways, we're going to show you the view and just check out what North Korea looks like for the first time. train station in South Korea before you go through into North Korea. So if you go down the track that way, you go to Pyongyang. But of course, there are no trains that go through there anymore. But there is one train every day that will take tourists a couple of cities over in South Korea to here, and this is the last stop. But you only do that once a day, and then there's no more trains. But so anyway, so right now this place is basically empty except for tourists here, and I guess George Bush came and gave a speech here with the president in 2002, and they just tell a story about reunification and how one day trains will again go through here. And this also is the last train going through North Korea, or this is the train that would go through North Korea. And so currently North Korea blocks South Korea from being able to get through and attach to the Eurasian rail line. And so the hope is one day for those to be reunified so that South Korea can then again be reconnected to the rest of Asia and Europe without having to go through plane or go by plane or go by water. One day we want to take this train, we want to come back here after they're reunified and take this train all the way through to Pyongyang. Alright, so that wraps up our DMZ / looking into North Korea tour. And this was a really neat way of doing it, we think, because we got to see the history that led up to where we are today with the DMZ and relations between North Korea, South Korea, the US, and the rest of the world in the War Museum yesterday. And then today we finally got to see the real deal and what's actually happening now.
Yeah, and yesterday we got to learn so much about it and learn about the people who still have family in North Korea and are still wanting to reunify with North Korea, and just got to kind of gain compassion for them and just know that there's still a lot of hope of people reunifying. And so that was neat, getting to see their monuments today and getting to look into North Korea. And so we're just really hoping that they do reunify and that we can come back someday and see it as one big Korea and get to go into North Korea.
Yeah, and so one slight disappointment was the tour guide told us that about 10 days ago, I think is what she said, they received an email saying that they weren't allowed to take tours to the JSA. And so we weren't actually able to go to the blue houses in between on the actual border or anything like that, which is a slight disappointment because I really wanted to be able to do that. Because you actually feel like you're being a part of history here, kind of like pre-Berlin Wall falling in North Korea. So I was hoping to get to do that, but you know, the hope is more so, I guess, for reunification rather than getting to go see the wall or anything.
It was still really cool.
But it's still a really neat tour and really eye-opening. Like Aubrey said, a great way of gaining compassion for those in North Korea. So really fun day.